jobs, but how are the Jets going to be able to hire anybody? There's 32 of these jobs. They pay a ton of money. The Jets have a recent history of giving 4 to 6 years for their GMs and head coaches to figure it out. Nobody thought the Jets were going to get a top-of-the-line candidate when they got Douglas and Saleh. Those were considered top-of-the-line candidates.
And ends up they weren't. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, unfortunately they weren't. And even back in the day, McCagnon was considered a top-of-the-line candidate. If you looked up that SI article on Next GMs, McCagnon was always listed. They hired him.
Always.
Didn't work out. Same with Todd Bowles when they hired him too, by the way. So there will be people who will come here. This is not as bad as a situation as it's been in the past. Also, the other situations, right? New Orleans, they got all kinds of cap problems they're going to have to deal with and no long-term answer at quarterback, although they've been playing slightly better since firing Dennis Allen in season, still very bad. Dallas, you got to deal. You think Jets ownership is difficult. Dallas's ownership is difficult, and they got a lot of money sunk into a quarterback who's now coming off a serious injury and a lot of money sunk into other players that have not worked out particularly well. You have potentially the Giants, who have been a bigger dumpster fire than the Jets this year and have no quarterback either. Who else am I missing? Jacksonville? Is Jacksonville going to hold over their GM and you're going to have to get stuck with their bad GM?
Just extended a tackle for top 15 tackle money. So
yes.
I don't.
And if you don't believe in Lawrence, you're into him for hundreds of millions of dollars and he's not really been good. And he's also banged up now.
Let me frame it to you like this. Like we'll kind of Mike and the Mad Dog it. So here's I'll go through the jobs that I think will be open or could be open. And you tell me, just based on the roster, if the Jets are the better roster or not. And factor in like some longevity of it. Like let's assume like Aaron Rodgers is, and maybe even Devontae Adams aren't here. So picking number one, Jacksonville, that'll be a head coaching opening at minimum. What do you think about that one? Jets are better.
I think the Jets are better. I also think I wonder if Belichick's going to be a serious candidate there. And Belichick's not a serious candidate for the Jets. So I wonder if that's one that just kind of gets wiped off the board where he just he goes to Jacksonville and it's done. But no, they're a mess right now, right? And how much money did they sink into guys like Christian Kirk? And again, they're over leveraged on Lawrence, who has not been there. I would take the Jets. And we'll say the Jets was probably going to beat the Jets in a few weeks. Doesn't mean they're good, but there's not much there. And it's also Jacksonville. It's fucking Jacksonville. Do you want to coach there or do you want to coach in New York? Come on, what are we talking about?
Well, unfortunately, some people would like how laid back it is compared to New York, but I always think that's not the right candidate if that's your argument. All right, Vegas.
Man, I like the Jets roster better than Vegas. Who is they got Bowers, sure, but who's your running back? You got Jacoby Myers as your best receiver. They have absolutely nothing at quarterback.
Nothing at quarterback.
Yeah. Won't post Rodgers. I'd rather have Tyrod than, Aiden O'Connell or Rattler or Gardner Minshew hurt or whoever they're rolling out. And I mean, that team might be the only team worse coached than the Jets this year right now, but I still take the Jets from a talent perspective. And again, you're also dealing with, I don't know, is it the best ownership situation to work for? Maybe, I don't know, but is it that much better than Woody Johnson?
Yeah, Vegas is I have no idea if Vegas will be more attractive than the Jets. That's one where I'm a little bit at a toss-up. There's a lot of weird things there, just overall to kind of balance. I mean, yes, some people like the idea of living in Vegas because the taxes or the lack of taxes and the stadium, but at the same time, it's been a mess for a while for a reason. Ownership like the Jets. The Giants at number 3.
I think the Giants will be a more coveted job.
I think they're a fucking disaster. But I agree with you, though, oddly enough.
It's one of those legacy franchises, especially compared to the Jets. You get all if you like the big market, then you get that with the Giants. You have the same building. They are considered a more prestigious franchise. I would think, for better or worse, Mara is probably considered less of a difficult owner to work for than Woody. Mara, in many ways, actually came off well because of the exposure of Hard Knocks, because he was keep Saquon. And now you could argue that decision all you want. I'm just talking about optics. Now Saquon's an MVP candidate, and the Eagles are one of the 3 best teams in the league. I could see that being considered a more and again, you go up and down the roster. All right, they don't have nothing, right? They have KT, they have Dexter Lawrence. They have some pieces up front with that defensive line. Neighbors is going to be good once you get him right in the right quarterback situation. Tracy was a nice find at running back. It's not like Barron, but I just think if all things were being equal, I could see someone being like, it's the Giants. It's like, if I'm going with a New York, New Jersey franchise, I'll go with them.
The Giants are my like Vrabel fear franchise.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like if they get in the mix for Vrabel, I'm like, damn, I don't think the Giants.
Belichick's making the call, like take the job with the Giants.
Right, although he might not because he's always wanted that job. The Giants might have the worst roster in the NFL. Like it's actually amazing when you look at their roster how bad it's truly a horrific roster. And then the problems you run into, like they might have the best defensive player in the entire NFL with Dexter Lawrence, and then you look around and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what else is here. Maybe Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy, who are rookies, but still. But yeah, the Giants' job, people will want it, of course. I don't think New England's going to move on from anyone.
No, I could see
kind of made that
got
decision.
too much of an ego, and like we're sticking with it.
Yeah, stick with it. Carolina's not moving on from anyone. Then the Jets pick at 6th. Tennessee just made their hires. That's not changing. Cleveland's probably going to ride it out with Stefanski, which I think Stefanski's a really good coach. Yeah. I think the infrastructure they have would bring Deshaun Watson back next year, potentially, that's just horrible. All right, so that brings us to the Saints at 9. This will be the second to last team we'll do because we'll do Chicago at 11.
I would rather be with the Jets than the Saints. I actually don't think it's particularly close. I think the Saints
money situation, right?
The money situation's a mess. I worry about Olave with the concussion stuff. Like, is he like going to be all right? Like long term, like that's like a crazy, scary situation. I feel like MVS is like their number one receiver right now. Randomly, every time I check on the Saints, he's scoring touchdowns, which is like crazy. Kamara, I know they have him under contract, but is he like entering his best years or his best years behind him? Defense, okay.
It got bad fast out of nowhere.
Yeah, like Demario Davis still chugging along out there, a guy, but like there's not much to that, and I don't know. Like I don't see that as a particularly more appealing job than the Jets, considering picking up the pieces you're coming off of from them.
If you had to guess, Trevor and I did the whole exercise. If anyone wants to listen to like the Saints cap situation and how they have to fix it this offseason, it's on our Stock Exchange YouTube channel. It's I'm going to say one of the most aggravating things I've done, but one of the more time-consuming things Trevor and I had to put together. If you had to guess, how much in the red do you think they are? When I say in the red, I mean literally over the cap they are projected for next year before they make any moves.
I'll say like $30 to $40 million over the cap or something.
70.5. Because you have to factor in their draft class. If you don't factor in their draft class, which is expensive, because they're bad, so the picks cost more. Cap, about $63 million.
Oh my god,
that's actually unbelievable. It's like everybody always does. Like, oh, the cap's not real. The Saints always figure it out. I'm telling you, this is the year that the bill comes due. So whoever takes that job probably gets a freebie year, and it's still the Saints. It's typically a good organization, so maybe it'll be attractive. But next year, it's an abomination. All right, the last one, the Bears at 11, maybe the most interesting one because they have the aspect of the Jets, like big market, which is good. They have a promising young quarterback. They have some talent on defense and on offense, but their line needs to be redone. But I feel like the ownership with the Bears is not viewed in a positive light, and people have not been able to have success there for a while.
Well, you're going to be stuck with the holdover GM, right? Which I feel like is what hurt the Jets in their search, right?
Yes.
Way back in the day when this whole thing started, I feel like that hurts them in the process. But still, for a head coach, I think that could be seen to be very appealing. But maybe they get locked in with a guy like Kingsbury, who's like, I want the young quarterback. I like Caleb. I have Keenan Allen. I have DJ Moore. I have Adunze. There's some pieces on defense, and they're kind of similar to the Jets where they've like lost a lot of dumb close games, like due to bad special teams and unspeakably bad clock management. I could see that being considered more enticing. And again, also a legacy franchise, right? It's like Packers, Bears, Giants, Cowboys, Soldier Field, huge market, the whole deal.
You win there, you're a legend. Like
exactly. So I mean, the Jets are kind of like upper middle of the pack, I think.
So that was 6 jobs. I think the way we're trying to have a positive Jets pod here for once. I feel like because we're just we've done enough damage. So I think the positives for me of that exercise are that one, I know bigger numbers have been floated out there, but that looks like 6 open jobs. I mean, unless there's always the surprise firing, like does Mike McDaniel get fired out of nowhere? Does Stefanski get fired? Does Mayo get fired? I don't think any of them do, but once, like, does Zach Taylor? No, they're a cheap franchise. So 6 jobs, but the bingo spaces of the Jets aren't getting Belichick and somebody probably is, and the
Yep.
Jets aren't getting Ben Johnson and somebody probably is.
Yeah.
So it gives you a shot to get somebody decent.
Yeah.
Decent. I mean,
I think they have. I like to tell myself they have more of a puncher's chance with Vrabel than I think that maybe they do. I think they're going to give a real run at him. I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
So too. Yeah.
I would like.
Are they the one team that gives him the keys? Like, you look at all these organizations. That's what they're going to have to do. So Vegas still has Telesco. They shouldn't. They're not going to move on from him. You said the Bears still have Poles, and I agree. It's, that the Saints, I don't think they're going to move on. So the jobs that could come with a whole new infrastructure, roster control, Jacksonville could keep Balky, but then we'll assume they don't here. Jacksonville, the Giants, the Jets. Like, I will die on the hill that I think Vrabel will go wherever gives him the keys. And then everything falls under that. If it's a tie, say Jacksonville or the Giants also give him the keys, you got roster control, then the Jets lose.
Yeah.
But if it's the Jets are giving you roster control and you're going to hire your own kind of scout GM, compared to everyone else just wants him as a coach, I think the Jets have a chance. Not necessarily great. I think that gives them a chance after how things.
Wouldn't that be a nice peace of mind for, like, Woody and Chris to be like, everyone wants us uninvolved. Like, we're giving it to this guy, our football guy who's been to the AFC Championship game, has the pedigree. He's going to be a hard ass. He's going to, like, whip this thing into shape. And I think they'll have a chance. And if they don't get him and the other guys are off the board, then you're kind of into the, Aaron Glenn conversations, maybe the Minter conversations. You get into some of these other names. I don't think Kingsbury.
Where in the world is Pete Carroll, man?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have no idea. I truly have no idea. It just feels like the smoke is not blowing in that direction where he'd, like, seriously consider coming here. But maybe he comes out of nowhere and the Jets give him, like, a massive offer. If he wants to coach again, there's only so many jobs, and the Jets could use a senior mind like that, as we discussed before. So it's bad, but it's not quite as bad as I think some people are making it out to be. And again, I do think with what we're seeing from him now, all things being considered, the incoming regime will want to start fresh at quarterback and not want to power share or ego share or locker room share with a 42-year-old who's got strong opinions about everything. So that's it, War Room. I think let's get we're going to get back into Jets Miami talk tomorrow. I'm going to try to make sure we get Jason on before from Over the Cap before the season ends, so we can go through some of the different, like, cap implications of everything that we've discussed. That will be an episode we hit before the season drops.
Great call. Yeah.
And we'll continue to mix in more sort of off-season draft-heavy content to kind of lead into some of the off-season stuff that inevitably is going to come. So thank you for listening. We'll be back on the feed soon.